Good morning, and thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup. I'm Neeraj Shah. Let's take stock of all the newsmakers, and there's a clutch of news flow today, by the way, viewers. Or maybe some very important news flow, even if the news flow may not be very pronounced or number in numbers. But let's dissect all of that. So the world markets are not a bad place. That's the first point. This is what the U.S. markets, of course, did, and they did really well for themselves. And this was on account of the US weekly initial jobless claims, which showed a modest increase. So if you look at the global news flow, oil is set for a steep weekly loss as the slowdown concerns loom large. JP Morgan says that China growth around 5% is achievable in the next year, and the US weekly initial jobless claims showed a modest increase. Now, remember yesterday we saw CBOE VIX had come off quite rapidly. I think it's important to get the other statistics as well. The dollar index at 104, the 10-year yield sub 3.5, CBOE VIX, sorry, it's at about 22. What I meant was the 10-year yield, which had gone down 3.45, currently at 3.47. But yeah, those cues are okay. Standard par for the course, no great changes. But with the strength that we displayed in trade yesterday, I would suspect that we would have a good start today. The SGX Nifty should be showing a bit of green on the screen. And I would suspect that we might actually do slightly better than what the SGX is indicating. No, about a third of a percent. Okay, so about between quarter of a percent to a half a percent, that kind of start is certainly possible for our markets. Now, what's the trade setup therefore? I think the slight uptick in the global markets may aid the headline moves after the late surge yesterday, but the volatility is expected to sustain well until the US. Sorry, I've mentioned US elections. What I meant was the US Fed meet and the inflation numbers. So there's an error on my end there. But yeah, what I meant was the Fed meet and the inflation numbers next week. So be mindful of that. And I think PSU banks continue to remain the preferred bet despite the recent run-up. The index volume in yesterday's session was 198% of the average volumes seen last month. So on much higher prices, there is much higher traction in the PSU banking space. So do watch out for that. Viewers, I suspect that what might be in focus as themes for today, for the next few days, one, the oil marketing companies. I think that now the operations become a lot better, a lot more profitable. There should be traction in what BPHP, IOC could be doing. Maybe even Reliance could find some favor. So oil and gas and OMCs in particular remain a very important bet. And because of the China opening up piece, metals remain a very important bet. So I think from a thematic perspective, while PSU banks, etc., have all done well, these could now be center stage for the next few days. So be mindful of that. Metals, of course, for the last few days have already rallied quite a bit, but you never know, there could be more in store. Um, Stocks to watch. I think HCL Tech remains top of the line. And does it impact the whole IT space at large? Don't quite know. This is as per brokerage notes. Of course, we don't have the official release from the company, but apparently in the US Investor Day, the CEO has narrowed the company's FY23 revenue growth guidance to the lower end of its guidance band of 13.5 to 14.5. This is happening after they had upped the guidance band a few uh, a few days back, and that is the last quarter, and that is quite a statement really from HCL Tech. The flip flop thereof certainly will hurt the stock price today. Could it hurt the whole IT pack? Is the question. It of course blames the adjustment of weaker macro environment, the drop in discretionary spend, and higher furloughs, especially in the telecom vertical. Quite interesting. Is there a read through out there for Tech Mahindra? Is the question. It now expects the services growth to come at the lower end of the 16 to 17% YOY constant currency guidance range. Um, well, worrying sign will impact HCL Tech today. Remember, IT's had a bit of a rally and will impact some of the other tech stocks too. I would suspect that Tech Mahindra too will be in focus. So a bunch of other companies which have got telecom as a principal large vertical could also face issues. So watch out for IT in the session today. Paytm, it's an interesting move. So they have done up, considering a buyback of equity shares. Now, a lot of question marks about why would a company like a loss making like Paytm do a buyback. Traditionally, buyback should be done if companies believe stock is undervalued and they have cash to meet up to those demands of the buyback demand. Now, is this a way to tackle multiple issues and shore up some confidence? Well, some brokerages believe so. So, for example, Dollar Capital or DART, in the note that they came out, is that what they believe is the target price. That's immaterial, really. This is what they're saying about the rationale on the Paytm buyback. They're saying that the buyback announcement would take away multiple investor concerns around profitability and cash generation roadmap of the business. Now, I doubt that, but maybe they have a better understanding than I do. Who knows? Maybe they do. And therefore, just thought we'll bring their note. The buyback announcement, they're saying to take away investor concerns around any further pressure from potential supply from large investors in the near future. Sure, this could happen. They say it would boost confidence on management's optimal capital allocation practice and potential for further earnings accretion in future through the buyback route. Some of these assumptions you could argue, I mean, we could think about it different ways. But the larger point is maybe the street may think like this, and maybe the stock could have a more stable run in the near future. It certainly could do well today. I'm just saying, in a in the short term, there could be some traction on Paytm. So it's something that you certainly should watch out for. Okay. That aside, and there is sugar companies, because Indian sugar mills have contracted to export about 4.4 million tons of sugar. So that is important. And Triveni is in focus for more reasons, because yesterday in the block deal, when the promoter sold over 7% stake, it was bought by some very interesting names. So there is Sokgen, there is Plutus. More importantly, from a sugar company's perspective, there is Anil Kumar Goel, existing shareholder of Triveni, a very noted name in sugar. I'm forgetting the organization with which Anil Goel did a con call explaining to people why sugar. This was 2 years back, talking about why sugar is an interesting play. And for anybody who wants to understand that, just I think it would be on YouTube. You could hear that as well. But the fact that Anil Goel has bought it at 280 is interesting. I was doing some math, trades at about 8-9 times. So it's not terribly expensive. And if sugar stays in a good season, even for the next year, then yeah, this could be interesting. So Triveni Engineering certainly in focus, could do well today. So be mindful of that. BNP Paribas has a note on cap good names. The Cummins, they rated a new reduce, target price 970. Larsen rated a new buy at 2410. And Siemens reinstated a reduce. The target price is 2420. So this is interesting. Now, yesterday I saw the moves in this is the set of stocks which had price and volume action yesterday, which includes Venky's, Godfrey Phillips, Optimus. Look at those volumes, look at the price gains more importantly. The one that I want to focus a bit more is KEC. Now, I don't know if it's because of this upcoming of this piece of news that I'll bring to you next, but look at that price and volume action, 10% up, 22.37 times volumes. And by the way, unlike a Venky's, KEC is well traded per se. Not that Venky's is not, but a relative basis, I'm saying. The volumes on KEC are fairly high, and on that, they did about 22 times the 2-week average quantity with a 10% uptick, which is pretty strong. Venky's is strong too, by the way. But on KEC, I have a conspiracy theory, and this is it. What stood out for me in terms of announcements, and this came in at about 230 or 237 yesterday. But I'm still bringing it to you because it's a fairly large announcement about India's investments, right, into a grid for renewables. And what came out as a Bloomberg story is that India has unveiled a $29.6 billion plan to build transmission lines to connect renewable generation as it aims to nearly triple or treble its clean power capacity by 2030. It will help boost India's intergenerational transmission capacity from 112 gigawatts to 150 gigawatts. I wonder if everything power related, ancillary related, the transmission companies, power transmission companies, transmission line companies, all of those could potentially benefit from something like this. Very well could. And therefore, these stocks could remain in focus today. Yesterday, Kalpataru Power was up about 2.5%. Adani Transmission wasn't, by the way, it ended about 3% lower. But Kalpataru Power was up, KC was up. Maybe this is not the reason. Maybe I'm missing the reason. So excuse me for that. But independent of that, I just think this is a pretty interesting plan unveiling by the country, by the government, and it will be interesting to see the implications of this. We'll try and talk to a company about that. So, well, should be good. In fact, today at 9:50, I have a conversation with Nirav Sheth of MK. I'll try and talk to him about this as well. Would be interesting to see how it comes up. Okay, there's a viewer question. Sorry, on a particular stock, green panel stock after selling pressure. Uh, Difficult. I mean, I'm not qualified. Even if I was qualified, I wouldn't give stock specific comments, but I'm not qualified to give stock specific comments per se, my friend. Anand. But what I can do for you is that I can take this question, green panel, century ply, etc., and all of those stocks to a conversation that we'll have with the market guest today at 9:50. So you may want to tune in at that time, and we'll try and take a question on some of these companies and see what view does it have, does the guest have. Whether he has an individual view on green panel, no, I don't know. But we'll try and take a thematic view, if not a stock specific view. I'll try for both. Let's see. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation at 9:50 talking point today. Nirav Sheth is head of sales at MK. Could be interesting to see what his thoughts are on the current market situation. But net, metal strong, maybe even cement strong. Petcoke prices have come off. IT weak. PSU bank strong. Uh, that probably would be OMCs strong. That probably could be the order of the day today, and maybe for the next few days. Thanks so much for tuning in, viewers. Have a great weekend, and yep, I'll see you if you log in at 9:50 with Talking Point.